Hey everyone, I'm Victoria and I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you very much for joining me for this update on the disappearance of Ri'kiah Griffie. Sadly, she went missing from Aliquippa, Pennsylvania late last year, and her family is still desperately searching for her. Her mother actually took the time to speak with me, and I can't thank Rhonda enough, both for taking the time to speak with me and for sharing some amazing pictures of Ri'kiah that you will see throughout this video. She shared with me information in this case that hasn't been shared very widely to the public yet, as well as her experience in searching for her daughter, sadly not getting very much support from the police, and her experience going on the Steve Wilkos show to try to get information and exposure for Ri'kiah. And I want to make sure that I keep talking about Ri'kiah and that I'm able to share this information with you, because unfortunately she's not getting a lot of, traditional media coverage, and the last thing I want is for anyone to forget that she's still missing. One of the few networks to give Rhonda airtime to speak about Ri'kiah going missing was CBS News Pittsburgh, and she was interviewed by Jennifer Barrasso. This interview happened on November 1st, 2022, so a lot of the early disappearance information comes from that interview, while a lot of the updates and some of the newer information that I didn't share in my previous video comes from my conversation this weekend with Rhonda. So let's start by going over the circumstances of Ri'kiah's disappearance. On October 7th, 2022, Rhonda drove Ri'kiah to the Towne Towers Apartment on Franklin Avenue in Aliquippa because Ri'kiah was going to go see and stay with her boyfriend. Later that night, while Ri'kiah was cooking dinner, she actually FaceTimed with Rhonda, and sadly, this is the last time anyone in Ri'kiah's family has seen or spoken to her. In the next few days, Rhonda, who is very close with her daughter, and their whole family is close in general, called Ri'kiah several times trying to get in contact with her and just catch up, but Ri'kiah wasn't answering her phone. And obviously this was a little worrying, but Ri'kiah is an adult. She is 24. So Rhonda kept calling and kept trying to reach her. After there were still no answers, a few days later, the phone started to go straight to voicemail, meaning that it was likely either dead or turned off. And at this point, Rhonda began to very much worry and wonder what had happened to her daughter. And as any good parent would, Rhonda went looking for Ri'kiah. Rhonda went to see Ri'kiah's boyfriend, who was the last person that she knew her to be with and who she believed Ri'kiah was staying with. He claimed that he had kicked Ri'kiah out about 2 weeks before the November 1st interview with Jennifer Barrasso. I don't know the exact date, but it seems like it was sometime during the week of October 16th through about the 20th of 2022. And I do want to add that his story has changed in different contexts in some cases, and what he originally told Rhonda was that he basically just put Ri'kiah and her things out on the stoop and told her to get out. That was what he originally stated. But in other instances, he said that he took Ri'kiah somewhere. He dropped her off at a location that she wanted to be at with her things. So it's not a huge difference, but there is some differing story there. Now, Ri'kiah's relationship with her boyfriend was rocky, and he claims that he kicked her out because she had gone back to using drugs and she was acting crazy. But at this point, Rhonda had only heard the first story, that the boyfriend had put Ri'kiah out basically on the front porch with her things, and because of that, on the 21st of October 2022, Rhonda filed a missing persons report for Ri'kiah with the Aliquippa Police Department. Rhonda has been very open with her worries and with some of Ri'kiah's struggles. Just a few days before October 7th, when Rhonda originally dropped Ri'kiah off at her boyfriend's house, Ri'kiah had been released from the Beaver County Jail. Additionally, Ri'kiah does suffer from drug addiction. But even with all of that context and history, Ri'kiah was always in contact with her family. And sadly, even though back in November of 2022, Chief John Lane confirmed that the Aliquippa Police Department were working on Ri'kiah's case and searching for her, hardly anything has been done. There has been nearly no movement on Ri'kiah's case by the Aliquippa Police Department. Rhonda says that she feels that the police just don't care, and I hate to say it, but based on what I've seen and what was shared with me, I have to agree. She believes they've let Ri'kiah's race, criminal history, and struggle with substance abuse disorder color their investigation and search for her. And based on what I've been told, and from what I've just seen in general, I think this is true for everything. I think both the police and even the media have let that color their understanding of this case and how much time they want to give it. As far as I found, there are hardly any articles about Ri'kiah that are currently out online shared by the media, and I think that part of it is given her history, which isn't fair because every person should be looked for in this situation. Even if police wanted to make the argument that Ri'kiah is an adult and can leave if she wants to, that isn't even really the conversation anymore. Yes, she's an adult, but she's an adult who has always been in touch with her family and who has been missing for nearly 5 months now. And I actually have a bit more information that will probably make you realize that this is even less likely. So I'm not sure of the exact date, but sometime between the time that Ri'kiah was dropped off on October 7th of 2022 and before she was kicked out of her boyfriend's apartment or whatever happened, she was seen getting out of the car of a man named Chris Brown. Ri'kiah was seen just getting out of his car one day, and so after she went missing and this information had been shared, so when the police saw Chris, they decided to ask him a few questions. And this was about a week after Ri'kiah had been reported missing. When police spoke with him, Chris did say that Ri'kiah had been in his car and that she'd left her purse in his car when she'd been in it. But he never tried to return it, so he just gave it to police. So that means about a week after Ri'kiah was reported missing, a man had her purse and police were like, okay, thanks, and took it. And they haven't brought him in for any sort of formal questioning, nor has he been arrested. Now, I realize him having her purse could be totally innocent. She could have truly left it in his car. He hadn't had time to get it back to her, or by the time he tried to give it back to her, the boyfriend had said that she was already gone. Who knows? But you would think that given that Ri'kiah has been gone for a week at that point, that they would at least bring him in for some sort of formal questioning. And especially now, it has still not been done to Rhonda's knowledge. And so you would think that now, nearly 6 months later, they would bring him in to ask questions for sure. And as far as Rhonda knows, they haven't done anything with the purse. It's just sitting in their possession at the police station. And they haven't even shared what was in the purse. So it's unclear if there was money, Ri'kiah's phone, what was or wasn't missing. Did it make sense that she could have gone any length of time without her purse if there wasn't important things in there? You know, all of these questions that would like kind of tip you to be like, okay, this is weird or this is understandable. Since she heard this original information about Chris Brown, Rhonda has had several people reach out to her to tell her about Chris. Allegedly, several tips have come in about him and his involvement or possible involvement in Ri'kiah going missing. There was even an instance where another woman who suffers from addiction reached out to Rhonda and shared her own story regarding Chris. Please keep in mind this is an alleged story passed on from another source, so I can't verify if this is true or not, but I think that it is still important to include. This other woman knew Chris and apparently was using around him, and she became unconscious. Chris believed she had overdosed and decided to put her in the trunk of his car, likely to dispose of her body, if that was the situation. But thankfully, this woman had not overdosed, and she woke up in the trunk of his car. And she doesn't know what his plan was to do with him, but she felt that that was important to share with Rhonda. I think one thing that's important to note about this alleged information coming in about Chris and the fact that, you know, several people have called Rhonda to tell her about him is that it's several people who don't necessarily have a connection to each other. It's not like it's a specific group of people all calling to tell about this guy. It's several people from different backgrounds who know him in different ways, who know Ri'kiah in different ways, who have called to tell her. And while I do want to maintain that all of this information is alleged and nothing has been proven, I think that part of the important part of sharing this information is to not only hopefully convince someone to call and give this information to Rhonda and her family or another tip line. It's also because I want to show you how much Rhonda and her family, Ri'kiah's family, have figured out on their own versus what the police have done. Another possibility that follows kind of this line that Rhonda shared with me is that during the time Ri'kiah went missing and stopped answering phone calls, there was a group of men rumored to be in this area, hanging around the apartments and some of the areas where Ri'kiah may have been, from Detroit. Apparently, Aliquippa is a very small town and everybody knows everybody, so it's very easy to spot someone you're not familiar with in the area. And multiple people have reached out to Rhonda to share with her that there was a group of men from Detroit who nobody really knew why they were there or what they were doing. So, of course, there's a possibility that there's this outside entity that could have come in and something bad could have happened there. And most recently, in her quest to get both exposure and help with her daughter's case, Rhonda went to the Steve Wilkos show. Now, if you don't know the Steve Wilkos show, Steve Wilkos used to be the bodyguard of Jerry Springer on the Jerry Springer show. And the Steve Wilkos show is owned by the Jerry Springer Corporation. So it's one of those daytime talk shows. So I haven't been able to find a clip of this show. I've seen a very, very short, 10-second trailer of it. But unfortunately, Steve Wilkos has posted the other half of the episode where Rhonda appeared, but unfortunately the part about Ri'kiah has not been shared, and I'll get into that a little bit more later. But Rhonda appeared, and so did Ri'kiah's boyfriend. She also wanted Chris to appear on this show, but apparently the Steve Wilkos show couldn't even keep him on a call long enough to really schedule anything, so there was no way he could actually come and take a lie detector test and talk to them and answer questions. So the boyfriend did take a lie detector test for the Steve Wilkos show. As I said, I wasn't able to see the clip, so unfortunately I can't tell you the exact questions that were asked, but he passed. And I have to say, a couple of people wrote on my previous video that this boyfriend was cleared because he passed the lie detector test for the Steve Wilkos show. No, that's not how clearing someone in a criminal investigation works. I'm sorry, it's just not. Polygraphs are not admissible in court. The reason why is they are not accurate. You cannot guarantee that someone is innocent or guilty based on a polygraph. Plenty of innocent people have failed them and plenty of guilty people have passed them. That's exactly why they aren't admissible in court, because they are very easy to skew and sometimes they just don't work right. Whether you take medicine that day, whether you got enough sleep, whether you're anxious, there's so many different things that can affect them, and some really easy drugs to get can affect your ability to pass or fail a polygraph test. Even in criminal investigations, these are used more as tools to help, steer an investigation, and even then I hardly agree with their use, versus, in this situation, it's definitely not going to clear someone completely. And I'm not saying that, the boyfriend had anything to do with this. I'm just saying that we cannot consider him someone who doesn't need to be spoken to, someone who is not a person of interest, because he does know information about Ri'kiah that could be helpful even if she did go missing of her own volition. This is not going to clear him from anything, and I will say he is not a suspect or a person of interest at this time that I'm aware of. And I want to talk about the Steve Wilkos show too. I am glad that Rhonda was able to appear on it. I know that just showing that it worked, that there was definitely exposure after this show, I had a huge uptick in people clicking on Ri'kiah's video to watch it. And it actually, for like the past month or so, since they appeared on February 24th, I don't think I mentioned that, that's when the show aired, it's been like the most popular video on my YouTube channel. So I'm very glad for that. I'm very glad that the Steve Wilkos show did, to some extent, give her some exposure and get people searching Ri'kiah's name. But on the other half of it, I also think the Steve Wilkos show did the wrong thing with most of the situation. You see the other half of this episode, and to be honest, I can't even call it half of an episode. We're talking like 35 minutes to this one situation and 10 minutes to Rhonda and Ri'kiah. That's it. So definitely not half an episode. Instead of sharing the short 10-minute segment regarding a missing person who could still be helped and the family of that person who are desperately looking for her, the show has chosen to exclusively share a segment regarding infighting between family members who have already received justice for the murder of their loved one. They have chosen to exclusively share the more sensational and dramatic story. And I do admit, I did actually email the Steve Wilkos show. I don't know if it'll do anything. I'm hoping it will, but I figured I could email them and say, you would really be helping this family if you could share that, because at least it gets her name out there. It's going to keep people talking because it did work the first time, so we should keep this going. And unfortunately, Rhonda agrees that they picked the more chaotic and, aggressive show, segment to be highlighted and to give the most time to, because for her and the boyfriend and all of their, work that they did, they filmed for over an hour for 10 minutes of the show. There was so much that was cut out, so much more that could have been shared. And instead, because of the nature of the Steve Wilkos show, they chose not to help the person who needed the most help in that situation. So I'm really hoping that, maybe that my email will do something. Maybe if a couple of people also feel like emailing them, I'll include that email down below and the name of the episode so that maybe we could get it on YouTube, because I think it would go a long way to showing, at least getting Ri'kiah's name out there, although I do really want to make it clear that the boyfriend is not clear just because he passed a polygraph on the Steve Wilkos show. That's not how this works. And sadly, after all of that, that's kind of where they're at. Rhonda, who has lupus, is trying very hard to search for her daughter and do everything she can. Their whole family is searching for Ri'kiah. Family and friends, they have a Facebook group, and they are doing everything they can to keep her name out there, to keep her face out there, to convince people to give them information. And meanwhile, it truly seems like police aren't doing anything to help at all. Even most recently, the detective who had previously been leading on Ri'kiah's case retired. And while no one is begrudging him his retirement, and he is more than welcome to retire, Rhonda reached out to the police to see who would be taking over her daughter's case on the 20th of February in 2023. And it's March 14th, and no one's contacted her since at least the 12th when I spoke to her. No one has reached out to her to tell her who would be taking over her daughter's case. And honestly, they weren't really talking to her before. They weren't giving her updates. They weren't reaching out to her to ask if she had any new information, if she remembered anything, if there was anywhere they should be looking. Like, they haven't even been going to her for answers. She's been having to track them down to even get them to try. And she even stated that, like, the basic things they're supposed to do at the beginning of a case, from her understanding, from what she's researched, are not even the things that they've done. Like, they haven't pinged her phone to try to find her, see her last location. From what I understand, she doesn't really have a lot of banking information. So that wasn't something that, like, the family or police could access. So there's that. They haven't really searched any places. They haven't gone anywhere to look for her, and it's horrible. Like, these are the basic things you need to do. It just is overall so heartbreaking and disheartening to see what this family is going through and trying so hard to, get the exposure for their daughter and try to have her found. I mean, I don't even think they just want help from the police. They just want the police to do their jobs, to help look. They've organized searches, and I will admit, Rhonda and I did kind of talk about the fact that, there is maybe some sort of advantage to her speaking to people and family members speaking to people versus the police, especially given, that there's some drug use involved and some sketchier people maybe. So it does make sense that, maybe a family member talking to them helps, and she has been able to get some information, because she said herself she didn't know that if a lot of these people would even talk to police. But she has then shared the information with the police, and they still haven't done anything with it. Rhonda said that she knows that someone has to be controlling Ri'kiah, or that she must be unable to contact them for whatever reason for her to have stayed out of contact with her family for so long. And I even asked, is there somewhere that you think she may go, that she's always wanted to go, somewhere that she was familiar with? She said that if she did go somewhere, she probably would have traveled anywhere between Pittsburgh and Detroit. Detroit is apparently somewhere that she and her boyfriend would visit every once in a while. I guess the boyfriend had family there, so that is an area that Ri'kiah would have been somewhat familiar with. But she thinks it's very unlikely that even if Ri'kiah did leave on her own, did go to somewhere in this area, that she would stay gone this long. She said that if she did go, there's still something that happened to her along the way, which is very much a possibility. Unfortunately, people prey upon people in these situations. If she was going somewhere trying to find help or somewhere to stay, something could have happened. And I do just want to add this in. Apparently, Ri'kiah has always wanted to go to Miami, Florida. So while it is a total long shot that she would even be there, I just wanted to throw that out there. I trust Rhonda when she says that there's no way Ri'kiah would have gone this long without contacting them. After all, she's her mother and they're very close. And her family knows her best. If she wouldn't go this long without contacting them, I believe them. But I did just want to share those places in case anyone has seen her in the past or sees her now if something's going on. I just wanted everybody in these areas to be on the lookout. And if you do live in these areas, sharing this video or sharing Ri'kiah's missing persons poster will be a great help to the family. Ri'kiah's family is trying to hire a private investigator to help in the investigation for Ri'kiah. They have a GoFundMe that I have linked down below. Unfortunately, they have had very few donations and have not been able to hire a private investigator. So if you do have the ability to help, I know they would greatly appreciate that. And once again, if you don't have the money to donate, I completely understand. But sharing at least her missing persons flyer wherever you can will help a lot. The more we share her missing poster and get her name and face out there, the more chance that information will come in that will help her family find her. Rhonda has also reached out to the FBI, the state police, and the NAACP in attempts to get people to help her look for her daughter. And so far, none of these attempts have been successful. I know that they very much feel alone in this fight, other than, a few friends and family members who are helping. And it just absolutely breaks my heart, because Ri'kiah deserves to be found and be brought home, and she deserves to have her name out there and have people looking for her. She has 2 nieces and 2 nephews who very much need their Aunt Kia. Rhonda shared with me that Ri'kiah's oldest nephew, who's about 5 years old, so he's old enough to know Ri'kiah and remember her, talks about her every day and truly misses his Aunt Kia and wants her home. When I asked Rhonda if there was a message she had for her daughter, if by some chance Ri'kiah was out there watching this video, she wanted me to share that we love her very much. Your mother has lupus and she can't take any more stress. They just truly want her home. They love Ri'kiah with all their heart, And no matter the situation, they want to bring her home. And if something has happened to her, they want justice. Ri'kiah is 24 years old, biracial, and about 5'4". She has several tattoos, including a few on her right arm, which are flowers and the word "like mother," which looks like the tattoo on her mom's arm that I have up on screen now. If you do know anything about Ri'kiah, what may have happened to her, or where she may currently be, please call one of the following numbers. The Aliquippa Police Department at 724-375-6682. You can submit information anonymously to Pennsylvania Crime Stoppers for a possible reward at 1-800-472-8477 or online at www.p3tips.com/107. And you can contact Rhonda Duke on her Facebook page or through the Finding Ri'kiah page. You can also contact Ri'kiah's grandfather, Conroy Griffie, at 412-370-4997. The family is asking people to contact them directly due to, frankly, what they feel, and what I kind of agree, is police inaction. But if you don't feel comfortable calling them directly, you can always call the Aliquippa Police Department, you can call 911, or you can call the local Crime Stoppers number. Now, I know that Ri'kiah's family will see this video and will be looking, so if you want to leave them some love in the comments down below, I'm sure they would greatly appreciate that. They need all the love and support they can get right now, because I think that they have been fighting this alone for too long, and any way we can support them is what we should be doing. I have also linked the Finding Ri'kiah Facebook page down below if you want to join and help and follow in that way. Thank you so much for watching, and I promise if there are any more updates that I can share with you about Ri'kiah, I will. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!